The Nissan Patrol sure likes to hang around. The oldest came out not long after the original Holden, all the way back in 1951. The first came to Australia in the early 60s, and today's version is over a dozen years old. This thing is the vampire of four-wheel drives. But despite that and the advent of the new Toyota Land Cruiser, the Y62 Patrol has never sold better. And now, in her twilight years, old Bella here has had some work done. My name is Byron Mathioudakis for CarsGuide.com.au, and I'm here to see whether the old girl still has some bite left in her. Let's go. I suspect the reason why the Patrol has been so popular despite the advent of the Land Cruiser is because of its keen pricing, and now Nissan has sharpened its teeth even more. Starting from just over $90,000 before on-road costs, the entry-level MY25 Y62 will set buyers back nearly $1,400 more than before. But that's over $7,000 cheaper than the least expensive Toyota Land Cruiser 300 series, and that's a V6 twin-turbo diesel in quite plain Jane GX guise, while you'll need over $100,000 more for the next available full off-road wagon petrol V8, and that's the Land Rover Defender P525. And the base TI is pretty well equipped too. Along with gaining wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, an off-road monitor, wireless charger and satellite navigation, it features 8 seats, a limited slip differential, leather trim and a surround view camera, as well as a decent suite of advanced driver assist safety, more on which I'll go into later on. The TI scores a sunroof, 13-speaker Bose stereo upgrade, a center console cool box, a digital rearview mirror, power tailgate, heated and vented front seats, classy upholstery and more, but drops to 7 seats. And thankfully, all that horribly dated, shiny, fake wood trim has been binned for more contemporary trim. The Warrior does it best though, with Alcantara inserts, along with a thoroughly revised suspension setup, a 50mm lift kit, improved off-road protection, slightly better load capacity, more off-road biased wheels, and a louder exhaust, among other upgrades. Warrior would be our pick, and that's $40,000 under the Land Cruiser GR Sport equivalent. Plus, your neighbours won't have as much trouble spotting the Warrior as the latest version of the Patrol, since it scores black instead of silver side steps. So, what's changed with the Y62 for MY25? I'm glad you asked. Not the front, it's the same as last year. If you come around the side, you'll notice absolutely nothing has changed around here as well. Well, if you make your way around the back, you might be shocked to find no CarsGuide number plate, but also no changes here either. In fact, actually you need to get inside to see the real changes, so come with me. Nothing dated last year's Y62 Patrol more than its interior, which, for right-hand drive markets like Australia, stuck with the original dashboard introduced back in the early 2010s. Not that most serious 4x4 buyers cared anyway, because you'd be hard-pressed to find something with more metal for the money than the massive Nissan. People really flocked to this car in America and in the UAE because of its space. It's a wide, roomy cabin, and that of course carries on. However, what the car lacked were a few essentials in 2025, such as Apple CarPlay and a wireless charger, Android Auto, and that sort of thing. Now, of course, that's all been addressed because the center stack from the old left-hand drive car introduced at the beginning of this decade has finally made it to right-hand drive cars. So we get this 12.3-inch touchscreen here, as well as a larger electronic driver display within the lovely analog instruments in front of the driver. And that stuff also has more off-road information. So you get pitch and yaw information, as well as a display of what's directly ahead of you when you're off-road. So that's another bonus. But essentially, it remains the same. So the driving position's fine. However, if you're long-legged, you may want to try before you buy, because even at just 178 centimeters, this seems like I'm close to the maximum. So really tall people might struggle. But it's a good driving position in front of a very old-fashioned steering wheel. Very easy to navigate buttons for the climate control system. The multimedia system here has been updated and it's electronic, and it's got most things, although it lacks digital audio, so you'll have to go through the wireless CarPlay or Android Auto for that. There's sufficient storage. There's a new wireless charger pad here. They've swapped around some of the controls here, so the off-road and driver control roundel, if you will, the knob is down here, while there's an iDrive style controller for the screen that falls quite easily to hand for the driver, just behind the gear stick. Excellent storage, comfy seats that are quite sumptuous, and good all-round vision. They are the Patrol's main benefits, but essentially it's the same as before, which means that the front seat's spacious and comfortable. The middle seat is, well, equally spacious back here as well. Plenty of leg room. The backrest reclines, and to that amount, which is good for a nap. You get face level air vents up here, grab handles, lighting, and even USB ports. So, you wouldn't expect that from a car that dates back to when Obama was president, do you? And of course, there's a third row. Of course, the Y62 is large enough to be an ample 8-seater, as demonstrated by how easy it is to get to the third row, and the fact that the backrests recline a little for extra comfort, while there's a decent amount of space back here too, as well as grab handles and air vents as well. So this makes a great family hauler, and there's even a little bit of room behind the third row for luggage and that sort of thing. So well packaged. Of course, it's very large, and to haul all this around, there's a great stonking something underneath the bonnet. So let's check that out. Do you hear that? Of course you do. It's a great big stonking V8 engine, and the only one in a vaguely affordable mainstream SUV. And it's one of the key reasons why Patrol sales have been on the up and up in Australia since the early part of this decade. Going into more detail, this is Nissan's muscular 5.6 litre quad-cam petrol-powered V8, mated to a 7-speed torque converter automatic transmission. It sounds particularly evocative in the Warrior with its exaggerated bimodal exhaust system. And here's a tip: lash out for the 98 RON Ultra Premium Unleaded Petrol, and power is set to crack 300 kilowatts. Drive is transmitted to either the rear or all four wheels via an electronic four-wheel drive transfer case with the usual two-wheel drive, four-wheel drive high, and four-wheel drive low range options. Nothing different from before then. How does all this old school tech feel in 2025? Still pretty capable off the beaten track, that's for sure. Just like the first Patrols did nearly 75 years ago, thanks to body-on-frame construction. The Y62 also features hill descent control, independent double wishbone suspension with long travel coil springs, and, if you go for the Warrior, which is our favourite of the bunch, 50mm extra ground clearance, 40mm wider tracks, and even better approach and departure angles. The upshot of all this are very impressive four-wheel drive abilities, with the Patrol easily scrambling between the rocky terrain, through the deep potholes, over the muddy plains, and across the deep waterways of the off-road facility Nissan took us to, without getting too jammed or bogged up. This is what the Y62 was designed to do, and the Warrior in particular still shines bright. So much for the off-road. On-road, the Patrol is starting to feel its age, in that even though it's got the glorious V8, which provides instant and punchy performance right up through the rev range, and a lot of smoothness to boot, it does struggle as a on-road dynamic machine. So the steering's fairly light and easy to use, but it feels a bit disconnected for the driver, and it is a little bit roly-poly through corners, particularly the non-Warrior ones. The Warrior is actually better tied down than the non-Warrior versions. It's also a little bit lumpy in the ride. I think again it's because of its off-road bias, but it isn't quite as comfortable or as cosseting as I would like. But this shouldn't come as any surprise to anyone, because it is a large off-road machine, and you do feel kind of majestic sitting up high, particularly in the Warrior, and you do get a sense of owning the road. That combined with just that V8 brute force and that creamy refinement from that engine do make it quite a pleasure, particularly as a highway cruiser. I feel this is a sort of vehicle that you can buy, and as long as your wallet can handle it, you can drive around Australia in comfort and with ease as far as towing is concerned. So I feel that compared to a Land Cruiser, for instance, they seem a whole generation ahead in the way they steer and handle and brake, but this thing is still good enough. And you know, you can't get a V8 four-wheel drive at this price point anymore, certainly not with this amount of space at any rate. So there's still a place for the Patrol, even before the Y63 comes here by the end of 2026. Except if fuel efficiency is a priority, because I come to suck you dry. Well, at least your wallet, because the Patrol does like a drink. In fact, we averaged around 18 litres per 100 kilometres on our drive from Melbourne down to Torquay yesterday. And you'll use a lot more if you take it off-road. That's the price you pay for the glory of a V8. And you know what else might be a pain in the neck? Nissan says the Patrol prefers 95 RON premium unleaded, but if you pause and zoom in on the label inside the filler flap, it says Super 98 octane is recommended, and that's the top shelf stuff. The Patrol's V8 might literally bleed your petrol budget dry. Here is a lowdown on the Patrol's safety items. It actually gains a couple for MY25 too. More specifically, I'm talking about a new ground view camera as part of an upgraded surround view monitoring setup. It adds to the standard roll call of advanced driver assist safety gear like AEB, lane keep systems and adaptive cruise control. But do keep in mind that no Y62 Patrol has ever been tested by ANCAP, so there's no Australian crash test rating available. Want to know more about Patrol safety? I'll go into more detail in my written review at carsguide.com.au. But there's another type of security that the Patrol offers that is absolutely second to none in the world of serious four-wheel drive wagons. Yep, thanks to Nissan's leading warranty, the MY25 Patrol, as with all of the brand's models nowadays, will have the standard 5-year unlimited kilometre warranty and roadside assistance bumped up to 10 years and 300,000 kilometres, but on the proviso that you get it serviced at your local Nissan dealer. Plus, you only pay $499 per service for the first 5 years, which represents a $645 saving compared to last year. Nobody currently does this better, but is a great warranty and an updated interior enough to keep the aging Y62 relevant in the next couple of years? With the next generation Y63 Patrol still up to 18 months away, this thing is going to hang around for a little while longer. And the changes that Nissan have made for the MY25 model are worthwhile. And it remains a comfortable, spacious and extremely off-road capable family SUV, one that actually likes to drink a lot of fuel. You can read the full review at carsguide.com.au, and as always, thanks for watching.